Not every teacher, not everything you do as a principal is a success. We had a tall, beautiful, red-headed art teacher that I think knew her art. I think she had the right classes and the right education behind her. Well-spoken. A lady in every sense. But a little lacking in self-confidence, maybe. Maybe she'd been reared in a genteel home where there was seldom any conflict. Maybe an only child. I never asked, don't know. In other words, I don't think she knew much about the rough and tumble side of life. So she comes up to our junior high, and she's the art teacher, and she cannot teach art the way she wants to because the rascally boys cause trouble. Now, knowing girls, I expect there were some girls involved too that the teacher didn't quite recognize their role in that. But at the very least, those girls, I think, were supporting these boys in being ornery. How's that for being a sexist? But anyway, she'd send me a handful, sometimes close to a double handful of boys at a time, and you've got to do something about these boys. You can't, as a principal, you can't do anything to improve her classroom situation when she sends you a handful, or 8 or 10 boys at a time. So I'd tell her, I'd lecture them, and I'd work with them, and I'd talk with them, and basically waste my time and theirs and hers. Because it wasn't getting anywhere. She wasn't getting anywhere. And I'd say, excuse me, teacher, don't send me a bunch, send me the one that starts it. Well, I can't tell which one really starts it. Pick the one you think is starting it and send that one to me and I'll deal with him. And then if it continues, maybe send him and one more, but do not send me a handful. And I can help you. Well, it never got past that. Never got past that group thing. Well, you've got classes that are being disrupted by kids all the time. They're not classes kids can achieve a whole lot in, and her student enrollment went down, and so the year comes that I say, next year I'm going to assign you a class of low ability English students. It'll be a small class. And I know she thought immediately he's setting me up for failure that'll be the justification to non-renew me. I really wasn't. I said, now listen, teach them where they are. I'll help you. I've been in some classes up at my program at the college where I was working on my doctorate. I'll bring you some materials. You teach those kids where they are, and you grade them on what they do. And you might be surprised how much success you'll have with that. Well, she didn't like it. She's scared. She interrupted her summer program working on her master's degree to add a course in teaching remedial English at some big Texas university and came back that fall and said, hey, Dr. So-and-so, he says the same thing that you say. And that girl went in there and she taught those kids and they made progress and she gave them grades in the first grading period. We had our parent night where we bring the parents in and they get to meet with the individual teachers and go over the grades. And that night as some people were leaving, I saw Mrs. Oliphant in tears. I knew Mrs. Oliphant was Roger Carter's mother and I intercepted her and said, what's wrong? Nothing. The teacher said something nice about Roger and said he earned the B that she gave him in English. And nobody's ever said anything good about Roger at school, ever. Oh my gosh, what a success. I'm feeling so good for her and for us and for Roger. I'll tell you, it wasn't more than a week or two that I realized, wait a minute, we're starting to have trouble over there in that class. We haven't been having any trouble. Drop in on her, and she's quit using the materials, and she has the regular materials that you ought to be teaching to junior high students and giving those kids material they couldn't handle, and they're getting their regular Fs. And I said, teacher, why are you doing this? She said, the faculty's outraged. They tell me that there's no way that Roger Carter should ever be able to earn a decent grade. I failed her. Right then is when I should have taken that matter to the faculty meetings, and we had real faculty meetings, and why I didn't have the sense and the courage to do it, I don't know. As it was, I was angry at her. I worked with her. Ignore them and do what we've agreed and what you're having success with. Wouldn't do it. And I should have confronted her and that faculty as a faculty, and I failed the Rogers of the world, and I failed the art teacher. And she ended up getting on tenure. The school district, based on, I don't know, the eggheads in education, the teachers union, the teachers association, whoever, they had a deal going in Jeffco that if you thought a teacher was not doing a job, this is after that PE guy, you had to draw up a plan for their improvement, and if they made some improvement on some of the benchmarks that you had to put in that plan, then you couldn't recommend their non-renewal because they were making progress. And that lady and another gentleman in our faculty that should have never had a second contract ended up being put on tenure. And I apologize to the community for that happening, and to the teacher for that happening, because that's a miserable life to be a teacher when you can't teach because you can't get the respect of your class.